con huevos. Because they're hunting you. They don't like you because of your fucking skin. Yo soy homegrown, soy mi corazón. Y el loco calor se convierte en vapor. Mis niños y sus padres sufren tanto dolor. ¡Ey! Cuidado por quien votas. Hombres de verde siguen a mi gente. Los orden de conteo de la raza imprudente. Robándole sus sueños de ser residente. Órdenes dadas por un gran delincuente. Resiste, 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 resiste. Los suelos del norte. And at the count of three, I want to hear everyone scream, okay? A la one, a la two, a la three. Walk, ice, 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 walk, ice.
There's little I can say, again, that'll make this situation better, but I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite.
So, we have seen throughout the news, for quite a while now, with these ICE raids, within recent light of all of these type of things with ICE, we need to now think about what would a biblical Christian actually say about ICE, or rather, law, mercy, and truth. A Christian take the media won't give you. Friends, the Bible is not a Republican platform or a Democrat platform, but it does tell us how to think. Right now, Christians are letting politics disciple them instead of scripture. The point one in which I want to get at is that the Bible does not pretend government is evil. And we know that from Romans 13, do we not? You know, I think it's worth we take a look at this passage. Please, we're going to look at Romans 13. Because the things we're seeing on the news, it's not good. Using these profanity, what a shame. But let's look at what the text says. And then we'll go on to another text. But Romans 13, which I'm going to talk about government. Because after all, ICE was instituted by government. So, it says, Romans 13 verse 1, it says, every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities. It does not say everyone should be cursing out the governing authorities. It does not say that we should say profanity towards these governing authorities. But also says, for there is no authority except from God, and those who exist are established by God. Therefore, whoever resists, here it is, therefore, whoever resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God. You see that? So whoever resists authority, as the text says, is in reordinance, or rather opposition to the Lord, because the Lord institutes government. And as we are resisting authority, we are resisting God's natural order. Amen, somebody. But again, that's not the end of the passage. So we have to read more. Sorry, I lost my page there. But we have to continue to read. We cannot just provide emphasis on that and not finish the text. Right? Let me continue reading. And those who have have opposed this authority will receive condemnation upon themselves. Since all government is God ordained, disobedience, since all authority is ordained by God, all opposition to that is a direct rebellion against God. How many of y'all would want to go in rebellion of the Most High? None of y'all, right? But again, we have to keep reading. It says condemnation, not God's judgment, but God's punishment. Y'all didn't hear that. Let me say it again. Condemnation we will receive, not God's judgment, but God's punishment. But again, we have to read more, because the text is not just blindsided. It says, for rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of authority? Do what is good, and you have praise from the same, for it is a minister of God to you for good. Right? So now we have another problem, right? Many Christians today, they have used another verse in the Bible to try to justify this ICE raids and such as that. So I'm going to read what people love to use, and we're going to analyze the text ourselves. Leviticus 19, verse 33. Do any of y'all know that verse? If any of y'all do, that's great. But if not, I'm going to read the passage. It says, when a stranger resides with you in their land. A stranger. Right. Let's go, before we go to that, let's go to Exodus 22, verse 21, actually. Exodus 22, verse 21. It says, you shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in Egypt. Let's get back to our original text. When a stranger, or let me change it, let me basically say in how the culture would read it today, when these immigrants, right? When these people resides with us in our land in the United States of America, you shall not do him wrong. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as a native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. The text says it right there. It says, you shall love him like yourself. For you were strangers. Listen, right? God doesn't just say that you shouldn't do it. He also says you need to remember where you were before you were in this place, right? You may be in a nice place now, right? But you are a stranger, right? So you are a stranger, but no longer are you a stranger, right? And what we're seeing here in this passage is that we should love our neighbors or love these people who have come into our country as ourselves. But the problem is, that's not how we're looking at it, because we should agree of law and order. We should agree of law and order. So, right, so according to Romans 13, government exists because God allows it to exist. Law and order is not sinful. Borders are not racist. Enforcement is not hatred. Now, let's be aware of something. A world without law and order is not compassionate, it's chaotic. But hear me clearly, enforcing the law does not give anyone permission to abandon mercy, right? Are you with me here? Christians do not get, or no one gets to dehumanize people made in the image of God and call it righteousness, right? But here's the problem we have. Just because something happened does not make it normative, right? Normatism is not the law of the land. The law of the land does not determine normatism, right? The government's job is not to preach the gospel. And the church's job is not to write immigration policy. When Christians expect the state to act like the church and the church to act like the state, both of those organizations fail. But this is what I'm trying to say to you, right? This is exactly what I'm trying to say to you today. I'm trying to say that we should not look at it fully blindly in the good side, or fully blindly in the bad side. We need to take ahead of what is good and what is right. As Paul says, what is honorable and what is just, to focus on these things. So are these things just? Are these things just? But not just from a Christian sense, but also from this view, if you will. We have so many news outlets such as CNN, the New York Times Post, the Washington Post. They're talking, they use terms as if ICE is doing exactly what Trump hired them to do. They're saying that they use the term that election has consequences. They said that election has consequences. They said that this is part of the consequences for people voting for Donald Trump. But the issue is not within the basically force as a whole, because that was not what they were made to do. So now the question is, what was ICE made to do? Because since we're talking about this from a theoretic side, what was ICE made to do? By definition, let's first look at what does it stand for, right? It's for immigration, customs, and enforcement. But again, the problem is deeper. But let me go deeper for y'all, right? ICE did not create broken families, right? ICE did not create broken families. ICE did not destroy marriages. ICE did not remove fathers from homes. That happened on its own. But why do people not like ICE? If you look at the New York Times, we look at the New York Times, they use it as a form and way to attack President Donald J. Trump in saying that the American elections have consequences and the people voted for this lunatic, so they're reaping the consequences. But the funny part is, if Joe Biden was still in the presidency, if the if the pervert, who never even got caught for his perversion, if he was running and he won and he enforced ICE, no one would have said anything. But because Donald Trump, the supposed orange man, the supposed fascist, does it, it's a problem. The job is to remove all of these. And you know what? I'm not going to be scared. I was scared of being deplatformed. I was scared of being deplatformed, and I was scared of having banned. But I'm going to say the truth, because I do not live for the approval of people, but I live for the applause of heaven, right? So I'm going to say it. ICE's job is to get all of these illegal aliens out of our country, or rather, is to get all of these illegal immigrants, these immigrants who are not here legally, out of our country, because they do not deserve. I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be here, but the extent into which they went into causes a big problem. For example, this article you see to your right or to your left, whichever side it shows, the article is from Lexington Choice for NPR. It says some swing voters who support President Trump in the 2024 election say immigration and customs enforcement agents are going too far in carrying out deportation orders after an officer shot and killed Renee Macklin Good in Minneapolis earlier this month. On Tuesday, NPR observed online focus groups with 14 voters from Pennsylvania who supported Joe Biden in 2020, then swung to Trump in 2024. 7 of those voters identified themselves as Republicans, 6 identified as independents, and 1 identified as a Democrat. The focus groups were part of the Swing Voter Project conducted by the companies Angagas and Sago. NPR is a partner on the project. While focus groups don't provide statistically significant results like a poll does, they can provide insight into how some key voters view news events. In this case, 8 voters, which is supposedly supposed to be, I guess, 12% of the poll. 12% of the poll is saying that ICE is generally getting things about right, while 6, which would be maybe 5% of the poll, is saying that ICE has went too far. No one thought it has not gone far enough. Rich Stahl, president of Indagius and the moderator of the focus groups, said he observed a lot of frustration with ICE and how ICE has been performing around the United States with these Pennsylvania voters. And the next article, which is like the second page, it says that there's a widespread of awareness of what happened to Renee Good on January 7th. He said, you have a big division in these groups. It shows that there's an underlying frustration with how things are going. Now, things are being executed in the United States. Then there's a headline that says, divided blame for fatal ICE shooting in Minneapolis. It says, most voters had seen video of the shooting. Hassan C., a 39-year-old independent, said the agent who shot and killed Macklin Good was clearly to blame. Participants agreed. We see that this is newsworthy because it affects a huge part of individuals. It says, this independent says, from what I saw in the video, she was trying to drive away and the ICE agent moved out of the way. He said he was no longer in harm's way, and when he started shooting her, he was no longer in the path of the vehicle. There were mixed opinions on who was to more blame for this incident, though. When asked, 4 voters blamed Macklin Good, 5 blamed the ICE agent, and another 4 said both were equally to blame. Grace P., a 6-year-old Republican, was among the voters who felt both individuals were equally to blame. While she said that Macklin Good was putting herself in danger by even being there, she also felt the officer went too far. These officers should be trained that you should never be shooting to kill, she said. There's something wrong with that scenario right there. So that's what the article says. So, what is my point? My point is, we need to think rationally. Not politically, but biblically. We need to think. We need to not look at it in where we are totally on the positive side or totally on the negative side. We need to speak truthfully, not emotionally. Love sacrificially, not speculatively, right? We must uphold the law with justice. Don't reject authority simply because it's inconvenient. Show mercy to the vulnerable. Every immigrant, stranger, or person in need deserves dignity. Focus on discipleship. We need to change hearts, not just by influencing policy. This made big news because of how it may be affecting others. And avoid being led by the media, because you see a lot of the news outlet made it seem a lot different than how it actually was. News cycles are emotional. We should, of course, we should care about the borders, but care more about souls. We accept the law, but don't worship the law, if that kind of makes sense, in trying to make it in a breaking news kind of way. And above all, there are news outlets that kind of push out this agenda of how it makes it look like, because it made it seem a little bit more worse. So what I'm trying to get at is that, yes, some people will agree from a standpoint that what happened, that of course we know that what happened was wrong. We know it. We know that. There's no question about that. But the question is, now that we know what they've done, how are we to respond? Of course, through everything, you're not supposed to be with something 100%. So what I think we should do is we should take it with a blind eye. Most importantly, I want to say to you, think biblically, speak truthfully, love sacrificially. That's how we are called to navigate the hard issues of our day. That's how we are called to deal with the hard issues of our day. So yes, sure, support it. And yes, they have failed with some sort in their in the duty of their job, but none of us is perfect. They have failed, but how we are to respond is that we need to be educated, and we are to respond sacrificially and not in opposition to it. So yes, they have done the two shootings were not right, because remember that all lives matter, right? Again, we know that lives matter. So we should look at it, and we should be in between of looking at it in half in a positive light and half in a negative light. Because after all, we cannot trust something fully. We cannot trust it fully at all. So we are to do justice, to do mercy, but not to forget our heritage and our foundation.